Moti told me about it. I said, Moshe, you see, I'm going to, I'm just going to, I'm on the wrong track. Yeah, okay. So yesterday we learned how Rav understood the brisa that if it fell backwards, it will be chayiv. There's no hevel, and Rav holds you could only pay. You only pay because of your hevel. So the Gemara answered, even Rav agrees that there's chavata if it's your karka, meaning it was a barbish was a yochid. The Gemara added to him as well, but the bombshell news yesterday was these are machloikis in Rav and Shmuel. If you're chayiv on bar mishum chavata or of hevel or because of hevel, you see the Rav who says only hevel agrees in certain cases there's chavata as well. Omar Mar, nafal lefonov mikoil hakriya. The animal fell forward from the koil hakriya. It was startled by the digger. Chayiv, the bar is chayiv. Fragt gemar v'amai. Why is the bar chayiv? Why is the balabar chayiv? Name a karigarmli. Let the balabar say, why should I pay? I didn't cause this. The kaira, the person digging, startled the animal, and that caused it to fall in. Why should I be mechuyev? Omar Psimi Barashi, Hamani Rab Nosan He. Our Brisa, our Mishnah, that says that even though there is some other opportunity to pin some liability, Rab Nosan holds, since you're a party to the damages, you'll pay for everything. He was hired by the. So. Yeah, but nevertheless, I didn't do anything. I didn't. He should have dug more carefully. He should have. I know it's hard to play tennis without raising a racket, but you could jackhammer maybe a little more quietly. He was a silent jackhammer. So Gemara Hamani Rab Nosan he. It's going to Rab Nosan the Omar Bal Habar Hezeka Kovid. We had this whole sugya already of Rab Nosan and the Rabbanon when there are two people responsible. For instance, remember we had a shaila, and I think someone brought it up. What if a shor pushes another shor into a bar? So there, the balabar could say, hey, why should I pay? This would never have happened had the other shor not pushed your shor into my bar. So that is the sugya that we're discussing here. So we're going to call Rab Nosan the Omer Bal Habar Hezeka Kovid. The balabar did do damage, and we're going to see exactly the svara of what he says. And we're going to see the svara of Nosan is the I don't care who's responsible. The nizik is going to say, my dead animal is in your bar. So as far as I'm concerned, you have to pay me everything. My animal's in your bar. Don't tell me he did it. It's in your bar. You want to say that there's somebody else involved, so you go after them. But I'm coming after you. And therefore, since the nizik cannot collect from the person who made noise, because that's a grumma at worst, therefore he can collect everything from the Baal Habar. The Tanya we learned, shor shadochav es chavei lebar, one shor that pushed another shor into a bar. The halacha is Baal Hashor chayiv. The Baal Hashor is chayiv. Balabar potter. The balabar is potter. Rabbi Nosson Omer, balashar mishalem mechza, balabar mishalem mechza. They each pay half. Let's see Rashi inside. Nafal lefonav mikoil hakriya chayiv. V'amai nema koira garmle. The koira potter who? Why is the koira potter? The grama ba'omahu. He's only a grama. I'm going to skip the brackets. Uchasheina koira balabar askina. We're talking about where the koira is not the balabar, ela shehu schira. He's merely a hired contractor. Now the problem is, you have to say Rashi. You have to say that the bar was a full bar that would have brought liability to the owner of the bar before the koira got involved. The high kriya have a koira chayiv de shlich l'varveira. What if I hired somebody to dig the bar l'chatchila? There, the koira would be chayiv because it would be the koira's bar as well. So it has to be also the kalkal which is rab. So it must be that there was already an existing bar and the koira was just hired to make it bigger. Fragt the Gemara, Balabar Hezek Ovid. Reb Nosson Svar is the Balabar did the Hezek. Kloimar, B'toich Shaloi. The Balabar did damage. Kloimar, B'toich Shaloi Nimtza Hanezek. At the end of the day, the damage was found in his bar. The Nizek shall come to him and say, I don't care about your excuses. My dead animal is at the bottom of your bar. And since I cannot collect, the Nizek cannot collect from the koil, Groma Ba'amahu, the startling of the animal was merely Groma, therefore, Mishtalim Inela Balabar. Therefore, the Nizek can claim in full his damages from the Balabar. Now, who says Balabar Potter? The Chachamim say the Balabar is Potter if a shor pushed someone shor into my bar. Bein Shashar Hanizik Shoita. Sa'if the shor Nizik was a Shoita, meaning it was defenseless against being pushed in, and it might have fallen anyway. Bein Shu Pikeach, or even if the animal would have otherwise not fallen into the bar because it was a Pikeach. The Amalei Balabar, the Balabar can claim Ilav Turach, if it wasn't for your shor pushing someone Shimon shor into my bar, the animal would not have fallen. The animal pushing an animal into the bar, that's a much bigger liability than just making noise. So therefore, I actually do have a part. So according to the Chachamim, the Balabar is Potter and Gansin, because he'll say you are responsible for everything. But Rabbi Nosson says it's 50-50. Rabbi Nosson Omer Balabar Mishalom Mechza Sharei Bein Shneim Hemisu. The Maisa both were involved, both had some level of involvement. Afilu Havishar Nizik Pikeach Chayiv, even if the Shor Nizik was a Pikeach, meaning that it otherwise would never have fallen into the bar, there's still liability from the Balabar. The Lekala Meimar Iboylach Yuni Mezel. You cannot say the Balabar cannot say to the damage to the Nizik, your animal shouldn't have been so clumsy. The Chaver Dochva, it was not the fault of the Shor HaNizik. So that is the Machlokes. Break the Gemara, but Vatanya Rab Nosson Aimer Balabar V'Shalom Gimel Chalokin U'Balashar Raviyah. If you're telling me that Rab Nosson says I am partially responsible and therefore as the Balabar I pay half, Rab Nosson said in a different case where the Balabar has to pay 75% of the damages and the Balashar only pays 25% of the damages. How do you explain that? Zok Gemara Lo Kasha Habatam Habamud. Zok Rashi Habatam Balashar Mishalom Raviyah. The time of Harish Lakamei, the Gemara is going to explain shortly how is it that the Balashar pays half. Well, if it's only if that you say they're each responsible for 50% of the damages, and the Balashar is a tam, therefore he would only pay 75%. But then we have to understand if each of these parties, the Balashar and the Balabar, are only responsible for 50% of the damages, just because you don't have to pay your 50% in full, why do I have to fill that in? Why do I have to backfill that? So, what exactly does Rav Nosson hold when these two people come together to damage, the Balashar and the Balabar? If you hold that each one is fully responsible for all the damages, so then, each one should pay half. Because even if the shor is a shor tam, since he's technically responsible for all of the damages, Chatzi Nezik is half of that. And if the Nizik benefits, so be it. But at the end of the day, he got lucky that even though the Balashar only has to pay Chatzi Nezik, the Balabar is there to pay the other half. Habamud, Zok Rashi, the Mechayiv Nezik Sholem, which is a Chiv Nezik Sholem, to call Chad Meshalom Mechza Mimonaf. There, each one pays half. Iter value Kula Hizek Abid. If you understand Rab Nosson, that we look at both the Bal Hashor and the Bal Habor, that they each are responsible for all the damages. Even with only one of the two, this animal would have died. Now that we have two people who are responsible for all of the damages, Mishalom Kol Chad Palga, each one would pay half. But if you learn that each one is only responsible for 50% of the damages, then my Avad Mishalom, each one pays for what he did, the Hamudu, and therefore each one would pay 50-50. The Ikosavar, so Zok Rashi, Ikosavar the high Kula Hazekovid. If you each one is fully responsible, we look at it that each one did the whole damages on their own, Then hoil the valav bar nami mai. Since without the bar it would have died anyway because your shore pushed my shore. That also would have damaged the shore on its own, even if there was no bar there. It's as if the balashar also completely damaged the shore. With a push, and the gifa sometimes will kill, right? You gave it a push, it could have fallen in onto the floor. It's not as likely, but there is an argument to say that you did do something, and could be that makes you fully liable. The chen gabe bar, makas negicha have a mayis. With my bar, had it fallen into the bar, even without a shore pushing this shore, the victim, into my bar, it would have died. So there's an argument to say that each one should be 100% liable. Now there's a svara to say that the balabar should have to pay gimel chalakim because really there's a liability on the balabar to pay everything. So Zok Gemara now inside. Well, the Haim Shalom Paga, that it should each pay half. Why Zok Rashi? Even the Balashar Nami Kula Zeka Ovid, the Shor Tam Shalom Chati Nezek Shuaisa. So even if he only pays Chati Nezek, but his chiyut is really for the whole shore. So therefore, it ends up that his Chati Nezek is half of the animal. Because over high palga Zeka Ovid, but if you hold that each of these two people, the Balashar and Mazik, and the balabar are really only responsible each for half of the damages, well then balabar mishalim palga, I would understand that. Ubalashar revia, I would understand that. But the last quarter should be a loss to the nizik, because I'm paying my half, he's paying 50% of his half. Zok Rashi, he goes over yachat. Since they both do it together, we don't say that they're each fully liable. Rather, we say haypal gavid v'haypal gavid. That's how we could understand why the Baal Ashar only pays a quarter to a tamu. It's a short tam who palgamai David Mishalim, and he pays 50% of the damage that he did. But then the question is, why is it that the Baal Habar has to fill in? Why does he have to backfill it? As Rashi says, Ubal Ashar the tamu l'shalom revia, Ubal Habar the muad l'shalom palga. But the idik mafsid nizik. Why does the Baal Habar have to backfill the extra 25%? Amarava, Zokrava, first of all, don't be hitting and beating up on Rab Nosson. Because Rashi is Rab Nosson Av Bezdin. He was an Av Bezdin. Rab Nosson Dayanahu, the Nachis L'umka Dedina. And he understands the depth of the din. So anything he says is true. So you have a little bit of difficulty of understanding him. Let me show you that it makes very much sense. It's quite logical what Rab Nosson said. Don't write him off. And Zok the Gemara, Rabbi said, when these two mazikim come together, each one is fully responsible. So then the question is, the Baal Ashur, why doesn't he pay 50%? Why does he only have to pay 75%? Because the Baal Ashur will tell the Baal Habar, Shutfusoi Mayahanili. Lemaisa, you are a shutf, because you also did all of the damage. But I'm not benefiting out of their shutfus. You should be relieving part of my liability as a shutfus. So that's the first approach. Really, we're each fully chayiv, but the Baal Hashor can say, Shutfusoi Mayahanili, looking at Rashi on the first wide line, below Shutfus Nami, Palgahudim Shalamna. Even if there was no bar here at all, and my animal did all the damage, I would pay 50%. I would pay Chatzi Nezek. So you got to give me a break further than that, because now you have to take some of the liability away from me. Even the Baal Habar, Nami Kula Hazekavit, since the Baal Habar Lamais is fully responsible for everything anyway, independent of the Baal Ashar, therefore Mishalem Gimel Halach. So that's one approach where we could explain Rab Nosson if you take the approach that each one is fully liable. But we also have another svara. Or you could say, you can say that Rab Nosson Shita is that we look at each person as if they only have 50% of the responsibility. Based on that, that we understand, right? But the last quarter, why does the Baal Habar have to fill in? He only should have to pay 50% of the liability. On that, it's Mishum Amalei Balashor the Balabar. The Balashar Hanizik, the owner of the dead shore, can tell the Balabar, all I know is Anot Turoi Bebirch Ashkechise. I found my dead shore in your bar. That's all I see. Your bar, my dead shore. At Katalti, as far as I'm concerned, you are responsible. As Rashi says, I found my dead shore in your bar. Therefore, if you want to push me off and tell me to collect from the other guy, whatever I'm able to get from the other guy, I will take. But whatever I can't get from the other guy, I'm coming after you. Zakt Rashi my Isli, Alvo Rabbanon, the Rabbanon don't hold like that, right? The Rabbanon argue in Ibnosin, and they say that the Baal Habar is Potter. Because they don't look at what the situation is after the damage. Rather, they go Basam Mikara Asli, they look at what was the catalyst that started this whole chain reaction. V'sarvi the Baal Hashor Kula Zekovit. The Baal Hashor did everything. Hilchach b'muad. If it's a muad, Baal Hashor Mishalem Kula, and the Baal Hashor zero. Uvitam, and if it's a tam, Baal Hashor Mishalem Palga, Upalga Mafsid, and the Nizik unfortunately loses that on the second half. If we don't care where you found your dead shore. The Gava Masnisa Nami and the Gabi Armishan as well, Basar Koira as Linon, you go Basar the Koira, and therefore the Baal Habar can wipe himself from any liability that he has according to the Rabbanan. Any claim is with the Koira, but the Koira is also Potter because the Koira is only a Grama Ushneim Paturin. While Rab Nosson would hold by a Koira that since you cannot go after the Koira, therefore you can go off after the Baal Habar fully, and that's why the Baal Habar has to pay. Okay, Gewaltig. Zog the Gemara weiter. Amarava. Hiniach Evan al Piabor. What if somebody put an Evan al Piabor, which means that Rashi says bar kruya. There was already a dug bar, and he put a rock in front of it, which now makes it easier for someone to trip and fall into the bar. So Zok Prabhu, what happened? And the shar would maybe have been able to avoid the bar, but since there was a rock there, it tripped over it, and it fell into the bar of a nafal bar. So here we have another case of a joint liability, because there's two bars here. There's the bar that was originally dug, and then there's a rock which also acts as a bar, which the second person who placed ends up getting involved in this damage. So Banul Machloikis Rab Nosson v'Rabbanon. This pashas would be the same Machloikis, as Rashi speaks out. Li Rabbanon, according to Rabbanon, Bala Even Chai, the who Gorim Kol Nefila. We said in the last Rashi that you look at what was the catalyst that started this whole thing. Clearly, the second fellow who put the stone down. So he is fully liable for everything. You cannot pater him al Grama ben Nizakin because he didn't push an animal in. He just put a rock down because the Evan Nami Hainu Bar. We happen to know that there's a damage called bar. The Kiddush of bar is you're chayiv even though you didn't do anything with your dime, you only caused it. The Torah says if you put something down, that makes you chayiv. That we consider as Zekah Yadayim. Kiditanya prepare Gimel, Huma Doimel, Lezeh, Avnish Sekinoi. Right? And Evan's talking about you put it in, you're chayiv for it. L'Rabbanon, L'Rab Nosson, Ben Shnei Misham. So, Zok to Gemara, Zok to Rava, this exact case we get Machlokes. According to the Rabbanon, the person who was the catalyst for all of this trouble, he's fully liable. The Balabar is potter from everything. But according to Rab Nosson, we say there's a joint liability, and therefore they each would pay half. Pregmar Pshita, why did I need Rava to tell me that this is a place where we can apply the Machlokes, Rab Nosson and Rabbanon? It's very easy for us to have figured it out without Rava sharing that with us. Zok Gemara, no, you might not have applied the Machlokes of Rab Nosson and Rabbanon to this case. Maldetema Hasam hu the Omar Bal Habar LeBal Hashor. Where did the Rabbanon say that the Bal Hashor is chayiv? It's when the Baal Habar can tell the Baal Hashor, Ilav Bira Didi Tura Didach have a katale. Even if my bar wasn't there, your shore pushing would have killed the animal. So this is the swear that we asked about earlier. Your shore pushed the animal, did something. So maybe even without my bar, these damages would have occurred, and therefore the Baal Habar can wash his hands from the damages according to the Rabbanon. Aval Hacha, maybe the Rabbanon would be moide. Because Motzi Amalei Bal Even LeBalabar, the Bal Even could tell the Balabar, Ilav Bira Didach, if it wasn't for your bar, Avna Didi might have a Abda. It wouldn't have done anything. You have a Miskalba, have a Nafal Vakai. If it wasn't for your bar, the animal would have tripped over the rock. It would have fell down, but it would have stood up and it would have been fine. It's only because there's a bar there. So in the case of the animal, yes, the Rabbanan will say that the Baal Hashar could be fully liable because what he did is something that could have independently killed this animal. But the person who placed the stone down, that could never have independently killed this animal, and therefore there's no way to pin it on the first guy. Kamash Malon, that even in this case where I only put a stone down, which could never have killed the animal, there's still a malkum to make the first person who put the stone down fully liable. The Amarle Ilav Even lo have enough of a beer. Because I could say if it wasn't for your stone, it never would have fallen in. It never would have fallen in. And that's why the Rabbanan will maintain their shita in this case as well, that the person who put the stone down is fully chayiv. Rab Nosson holds is a joint liability. Gewaltig Itmar. Yara Machlokes. Turn it on to Daf Nun Gimel on base. Shor v'shor psulei hamikdoshim shenachai. Two oxen got together in crime, and they shtoist a third ox. But one of the shores was a regular shor of chulin. The other one was a psulei hamikdoshim. What is the significance of a psulei hamikdoshim? A psulei hamikdoshim is not going to be chayiv. It's not going to be chayiv. Okay, so let's see what the Rashi says. My new, what is an example of psulei hamikdoshim? Shor b'char delay partly, a shor that was a b'char that had a mum that you were not yet paida, or it could also mean a carbon that had a mum that you were paida. So let's see Rashi. Hachi Garsina. My new shor b'char delay partly, b'char balmum she'ein bar pidyon, you can't be paided. Even the law of bar pidyon, since you can't be paided, like novach mi kedusha kamaisa, doesn't lose its original kedusha. Hilchach shor hektish karina bay. It's called the shor hektish. Even though the halacha is that a kohen is allowed to eat it, like karina bay shorei eyu, you don't consider it shorei eyu. So the whole parsha of Nezikin says kiyach shorei eyu. You're only chayv if it's a shorei eyu, and here it's not a shorei eyu. So this animal is exempt from paying damages. I did not get psulah mikdashim. Will I not get shor v'shor hektish? Why didn't it say a shor of chulin and the shor that was actually a carbon? Shanachu zok Rashi rabusa ashmeinan. The Gemara is saying even a bigger chiddush. The b'char ba'mum potter not only is a real carbon potter because it's not re'eyu, even the b'char ba'mum which you're allowed to eat, it's also not considered shor re'eyu. Hoyel v'la nifta. Aval psulah mikdashim sheniftu. But what about if it was a carbon that got a mum and someone was paid it? They're chayiv l'shalom. There would be a chiyuv to pay. Im not chay. If it shtoist another animal, the shorei eyu karina bay. It's called shorei eyu. Later on, the Gemara tells us the shor hedyet shenagach l'shor psulah mikdashin is chayiv. If a shor of hedyet shtoist a shor psulah mikdashin, the halacha is the owner's chayiv to pay alma shorei eyu have. So you see, the psulah mikdashin would be considered re'eyu, but the shor that's a bechar that had a mum and therefore it's going to the kohen, that is not called re'eyu. Shor hedyet v'shor psulah mikdashin shenachu ben shnei hamashor. So they together shtois ashor. What is halacha? Abaye Amar mishalom chati nezek, which means Baal Ashor. The Baal Ashor pays chati nezek, v'ashar mafsid nizik, and the nizik loses the other half. Uvetamu kaminala. We're talking about Ashor tam. Uchid Rav Nosson. So Abaye is talking according to Rav Nosson. The Amar madalesle lishtalum mehai lishtal mehai. According to the Rabbanon, I would only pay my fair share. I'm talking about a short time. Between the two of us, we're chayiv nezek. Between the two of us, we're chayiv chati nezek. My share of the chati nezek is our reviya nezek. But since we hold the Rav Nosson, where each one individually can have the nezek pinned upon him, the shor shel chulin will have to pay the full chati nezek. V'ahava kamisha ein lo shutuf. It's as if he didn't have a shutuf because this shutuf is exempt from paying, and therefore umishalim chati nezek kedinoi. So that's what Abai said. Amar Abai mishalim chati nezek, even if it's a short time, according to Rab Nosson. Ravina Amar mishalim Ravina nezek. Ravina says he would only pay a quarter of a nezek. Zot Gemara hav avatam hal krabon v'al Rab Nosson. Let's say Abai is saying like Rab Nosson, and therefore the partner that's chulin has to pay the full chati nezek, and Ravina is passing like Rabbanon, who says I only have to pay my fair share. Zokt Rashi Kirabanon Ravina nezek. Ha'il v'yesh lo shutif. There's two shutfim here that between the two of them they're chayiv chati nezek. I will pay as the owner of the animal that's chulin. I will pay half of the chati nezek, which is my responsibility, but I'm not paying the half of the chati nezek that the other shor did. So who ends up losing? The Baal Hashor HaNizik. That was one option of how to understand the Machlokes Abaye and Ravina. Or you could say Hav Hak Rabbanan. Abaye and Ravina both agree with the Rabbanan. So we understand why the Shor Chulun pays Ravina Nezek. Ravina's sheet is understood. But why, according to Abaye, do you pay full Chati Nezek? Habatam Habamuad. Abaye was talking about a muad. If it's a muad, then my fair share is half of the nezek. But Ravina is talking about a tam where my fair share is only a Ravina nezek. Zokt Rashi, the boy said metavayir karban v'lay pligi b'tam Ravina nezek. By a tam, I'll pay Ravina nezek. Hoyel v'yesh l'shut. Since I have a shut, if I'm only responsible for half of the chati nezek, I only pay Ravina nezek. Amubud chati nezek v'shar yavsid. Okay. Ikadamri, or we have another option. Ikadamri, Abai Amar Chati Nezek. Abai said Chati Nezek. Ravina Amar Kulay Nezek. Not Ravina Nezek. There's a different girsa of how this story happened, where Ravina said Kulay Nezek. Why would you pay Kulay Nezek? We would learn Ha v'Ha b'Mud. We would learn they're both by Mud. Ha karabanon v'Ha karab noson. And Adarabba, Abai who says Chati Nezek is going according to the Rabbanon, where I only have to pay my half. And Ravina who says Nezek Shalem is going according to Rab Nosson, who holds that since my shutav is not paying his half, I will have to pay my half. Iba Yisema, or we can have another shot in this second version of this Machlokes Abaye and Ravina. Iba Yisema Hava Rab Nosson. They both go like Rab Nosson, and therefore I am a chuyev to pay in full if my partner cannot pay. Habamud, if it was a mud, I would pay Nezek Shalom, and that is Ravina's case. But Habatam, Abaye's case is speaking about a tam, and therefore I'm paying the full Chati Nezek. Beautiful. Amarava. Shor va'adam shedach by labar. A shor and an adam together pushed something else into a bar. Let's say a shor. I said let's say a shor, but the Gemara is going to discuss even if they pushed a person in. So let's talk about this. Shor va'adam shedach by davar echad labar. Together they pushed something into the bar. V'nimtzu shloshton shutfin b'nezek. Hashor v'abar va'adam. So now you have three partners here. There's the shor that helped push, there's the adam that helped push, and then there's the bar. So the look is le'inyin nezaken. What does nezaken mean? Zokt Rashi, kegoyim dachvay sham adam. What if they pushed a human into the bar? Now we know if a human dies in the bar, it says shar v'lay adam. But we also learned that if a human gets injured in the bar, the Baal bar does have to pay. So kegoyim dachvay sham adam. And the person got damaged in the bar. Mishalman ben kulon chastamav. They have to pay amongst the three partners the amount of nezek that occurred to this person. The kulon chayovin beniskei adam. They're all chayiv in the nezek of this person. The kaim along legabe bar shar v'lo adam. You're going to ask, why should the balabar have any liability? Did a damage done to this person who fell into his bar? That's biktala kaim along. When the Torah said, Shar v'lo adam, you're not mechuyev to pay for a person who gets killed in the bar. But everybody agrees, if a person got hurt in a bar, the balabar has to pay. We're also going according to Rav Nosson, according to Rav Nosson, you look at everybody's liability, right? According to Rabbanon, the balabar says, I'm not chayiv at all. Go after the two people who pushed him in. But Rav Nosson holds everybody is a partner here, and that's why they each have to pay 1/3 of the full damage. What about Lina Bar Dvar? We know that if a person damages another person, he doesn't just pay Nezek, he pays Tsar, he pays Ripui, and he pays Sheves. So what about that? Zok to Gemara, Arba Dvarim, and Demei Vlodos, let's say this Vlodos got killed, Adam Chayiv, the Adam is Chayiv for everything, Visharu Bar Potter, because there is no payments for that. Arba Dvarim, Zok Rashi, Shem Levad, Nezek, besides the Nezek, Adam Shadachvoi Chayiv. The person that pushed him in will be chayiv. Shehein, why? Aval hashar b'bar p'turin. The kaimalon ish b'misoy v'lashar b'misoy. When the Torah tells us about the daled dvarim that a person has to pay when he damages his friend, it only applies to a person who does that damage and not a shar. The chen b'nei v'ladois, it says a nashim ksiv v'loy shavarim. So there's a discussion here. There's a discussion here of if the person would have to pay boishas. There is a discussion about that. But we'll put that aside for now because I want to see if we can finish. Okay, Zok to Gemara weiter. Zok to Gemara weiter. What about Lagavi Koifer? Koifer is not paid by a Adam Hamazik. Koifer is paid by a Shor Hamazik. So in Koifer, Shloshim Shalevet, which are payments that are only made by the animal, Shor Chayiv, the Shor would have to pay for all of that. Adam Ubar Peturin. So it's actually in Koifer and Mace. Shor Chayiv Kedinoi Uvamud. We're talking about a mood. Adam Bar Pturin. Adam is Potter the Habar Katalahu. If he pushed somebody into a bar, then he's Chayiv, and the person died. He's Chayiv Misa. So it's coming with Rabbimne. Vinami Loy Asrube. And even if you didn't warn him, we said. Remember, we said Chayiv Misa Shogin. Since it's something that you could have died for, even though in this particular case he's not going to get killed for it. He's still part from any monistic chiyuvim that come out of that action. We determined the chizkiah b'amanich as a kad, and the bar is potter. A bar is always potter from damages done by killing a person. Okay, Gavaltik. Now we have to go to in Kalim. What about Kalim? So in Kalim, if Kalim fell into the bar and broke, or v'shor psulei mekdoshin, or shor psulei mekdoshin that fell in and got damaged, Adam v'shor chayavim, the Adam who pushed and the shor who pushed are chayiv to pay for a shor psulei mekdoshin and for Kalim, ubar potter, but the bar will be potter. Why will the bar be potter? We had this earlier. My time is the bar potter because Amar Krav Hamesi Aloy. The Torah tells us that when you pay for damages to an animal that died in your bar, the owner of the bar gets to have use of the mace. When you have Psulei HaMekdoshim, you don't get to use the mace. Because remember, we learned that Psulei HaMekdoshim, you're not allowed to serve it to a dog. So therefore, there's no mace Yishaloi, because all you can do is just burn it, get rid of it. So therefore, the bar payment wouldn't be made to an animal Psulei HaMekdoshim that died. Zok Gemara, based on how you just sliced and diced to explain this entire sugya. Remember the Pshita Rava? Are you telling me that Rava, for a fact, holds that for an animal of Psulei Mekdoshim that died inside a bar, are you telling me that Rava holds that for sure there's no payment? But my boy Rava, I'm going to show you that Rava actually wasn't so sure about this. The boy Rava had a shaila. Shar Psulei Mekdoshim should not fall a bar. If the shar of a Psulei Mekdoshim fell into a bar, mahu. What is the halacha? Do you say haiva meisi aloi? Mean the misha meisi aloi? You're only mechuyev to pay for damages to a shar that dies in your bar. If you can keep the nevela and benefit from the nevela, yotzazeh sheina meisi aloi. But the shar Psulei Mekdoshim, the Baal Habar cannot have any benefit from it because you're not allowed to serve these novelas to your dog. Or maybe you say teaches you something completely different. It doesn't tell you that you're part of such an animal. You'll be chayv in such an animal. Just tells you lebailim metaplin v'nevela hudas. Maybe it teaches you that the nizik has to deal with liquidating the dead animal. So that is the shaila that Rava had. So how could you tell me with such clarity that Rava holds that if it was a shar of Psulei Mekdoshim, there would be no chiyuv on behalf of the Baal Habar? You see, Rava wasn't sure if he dashes that. Zok Gemara, Basar the boy Hadar Pashta. We know for a fact that after Rava had this shaila, he ended up accepting with clarity that from Vameshi Eloi by Bar, we learn that he's not Chai for Psulim Mikdash. That's how we know. We know that Rava concluded that. Frag the Gemara, Elabailim Metaplim Binavela Minole. How does he know that the Bailim are Metapel Binavela? How do we know that the Nizik has to liquidate the Nevela? Zok the Gemara, Nafgalei min Vameis Yeloi Dishar. When a shor kills another shor by a shor tam, it also says Vameis Yeloi. So we have two places in the parsha of Nezikin where the Torah says Vameis Yeloi. So we use the Vameis Yeloi of Bor to tell you that you're not chayiv if a bor damages a sharp psulim mikdashim, and we'll use the Vameis Yeloi of shor to tell you that the bailim is metablim b'nevel. Frag the Gemara, who said that you should do it that way? Maybe do a switcheroo. My chosses, the Vameis Yeloi to shor, mafkis leila bailim metablim b'nevela, Vameis Yeloi to bor, mafkis leila misha Vameis Yeloi, ebuchana. Maybe a shor shouldn't be chayiv if it stoices a shor shal psulim mikdashim. And the bor should be chayiv if it kills a shor shal psulim mikdashim. Zok Gemara, mistavra petur gabe bor. It's mistavra that if we're learning a petur, if we're saying that somebody gets a free pass, if he causes damage to a shor psulim mikdashim, it makes sense to apply that kula to bor. Why? Hoil poter boyas hakelim. We find other kulos relative to bor's paying. For instance, if a bor damages kalim, you don't have to pay. But if a shor damages kalim, you do have to pay. So therefore, let's apply the kula and say that the bor is not responsible to pay for a shor psulim mikdashim. Fekmar adrab, petur gabe shor. Maybe apply the petur to shor, because by shor you also find kulos. Shekein poter boy chati nezek, because a shor when it's a tam doesn't pay chati nezek. Zok Gemara, kulay nezek mias lo yashkachad. You never find that the shor should be completely potter from damages. A bor you find relative to kalim, it's completely potter from damages. Therefore, if we're going to learn shor psulim mikdashim is potter from damages, we'll apply it to bor. Okay, we'll stop here. Mesha will be mamshich tomorrow. I lost my entire lead. Yeah.
I'll get the Gebudim.
Okay. Yeah.
Listen, Yosy.
Yes.
We didn't discuss I didn't discuss with you the big shout out that Trudeau got from Hamas.
It's a Gishmaki endorsement.
Sure. And now he's going to bring those people in to vote for him.
I think that Paul Rivera is going to hammer home this